Welcome into the latest or the first episode of the NFL season 24-2025. I am the real underscore G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. I'm joined by at A underscore Schnicker for the first of at least 23 episodes, I believe, going through the rest of the season. We finished a very hot 12-6 in the playoffs, trying to keep that momentum despite the many, many months that we have not been able to pick any NFL games because who cares about the preseason? However, we went so deep in the weeds. We actually went to the NFL draft. We're studying every piece and every pick, and we could almost recite them one for all the ones we saw live. How are you doing at A underscore Schnicker?
I'm good. Yeah, we got a good evaluation of Detroit. I don't know if we got a good evaluation of the draft stage or really anything about the actual main draft area, but it was a fun time. It was
I don't
good.
know about you. I definitely remember pictures that prove that we were in front of the stage. And so we were there at the draft, cackling or maybe catcalling Roger Goodell. So on this episode, we're going to go through a six pack like we decided last year because every game was too many. And we could really focus on the most important games, the standalones, the ones that everyone's watching. Plus, we'll do a couple of our favorites. We have a new week one with a Saturday or Friday night game, Saturday night game, one of those two.
Yep,
Um,
Friday night game on Peacock.
there we go. Got to get the streamers involved. I know Christmas Eve will be on Netflix. Make sure you buy NFLX, join the club. And I gotta say, this is gonna be a really awesome season. I feel like I've done more NFL prep than I've ever done before, and I'm actually very pumped for it. So let's get into it. All lines are coded courtesy of Bet Online. There are links in the podcast description, Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify, plus YouTube. If you want to go make your first time deposit, get some free money from the casino, and support the podcast in that way. Other than that, we're going to use lines currently that I'm going to look up right now live on Bet Online. And I got to say, there's been some movement recently, so I can compare that a little bit. The first game we start with is the Baltimore Ravens heading to Kansas City for a rematch of the AFC Conference Championship game, which I gave out the Chiefs plus 3.5, as I just listened to that to make sure I got our records right. And the
Good for you.
Ravens right now are 3-point underdog, very juiced at the moment, minus 118 versus a minus 102 on the chefs. And I got to say, this one has moved a little bit because I think I was staring at 2.5s earlier. Um, Total is 46.5. What do you think about this matchup? Does it go any differently? I guess it went from three down to 2.5 back to three. So that's the trajectory so far.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at that AFC Championship game. Do you look at it like the Chiefs dominated or that the Ravens confusingly didn't just ran the ball into a defense that was at its peak at that point, and kind of went away from the game plan that had got them to such a dominant season to go with, or throughout the 2023 regular season. So, um, I mean, it's hard to ignore the Chiefs' additions in the offseason. I think Hollywood Brown, pending health, and I think obviously Xavier Worthy and the number one draft pick. Um, I think that their weapons are vastly improved compared to last season. Um, so maybe Mahomes has his deep threats back, kind of a throwback to the Mahomes style of a couple years ago. Because really last year a lot of it was praying for Kelsey in the middle or a little dump off or Mahomes creating with his legs. So I mean, I do think it's exciting to see this Chiefs offense and a Ravens defense that is with a new leader, a new defensive coordinator, and some changes on that side of the ball. I'm not so sure that it's going to make much of a difference to the Ravens defense,
Because it was
but
good last year. In
it was
terms of
good.
betting this game, so we see a 3-point spread. That pretty much. Are you still using 2.5 this year as your home field advantage? Have you changed to two?
No, I don't use 2.5. I think it kind of you have to adjust based off of um, where you're going, and I think in this standalone spot, I think it's probably worth what 2.25 is what I'd give it.
Because I feel like we going way back. over the years. The home team usually was a Super Bowl champion, would get this Thursday night game and would never lose. But
Yeah.
this one, I mean, looking at 3-point spread for the Chiefs at home, I mean, flipping home field from last year in the playoffs, and it makes the Chiefs look a little bit overvalued, I guess you could say, but there's a lot of juice in the Ravens right now. I'm just thinking about if you're betting the Ravens here, it's really important to have the +3 in case you lose on a last minute field goal or last second field goal, what have you. And of course, you could always win something if a mixed extra point or something like that down the stretch. But I feel like it feels like a very cheap price to me on the Chiefs at home in a standalone game that everyone's going to be watching. The first game that's back in the NFL after left us in the lurch for 6 months or so, 7 months, I think probably is more accurate. So to me, I feel like this is one of those numbers that is looking for Chiefs money. And I don't know, I'm not at all advocating or saying that sports books are trying to beg for money in certain ways. I just feel like the Chiefs are going to get bet here, -3 at home. And I think I like the other side.
Yeah, I understand your point of view. I think I see it that way as well. I just the Ravens were a better team last year. That's my opinion. I think you can
Than the
look it out
Chiefs or than they are now?
and the Chiefs have improved
No, no,
to, and
sorry,
I think
sorry. Baltimore is better than the Chiefs, better
they
last year than
were
the Chiefs, or they're a better team than they were, or they are now. They were better last year in 2024 than they are 2025, or they're better than the
the
Chiefs.
Ravens were a better team than the Chiefs in 2023. Um,
Okay.
I I think the Ravens got worse. Uh, some some pieces on the offensive line now off to different places. Um, it's just such a vital piece to that offense. I agree with you. I think that the Chiefs are probably a little bit underpriced here. It's just a weird standalone spot, though. I mean, you could go back to last year with the Lions and Chiefs opening, and I'm not saying that the Lions just dominated that game. It was probably a lucky outright win. It always feels weird in these standalone opening nights. Um, and you gotta I'm not gonna factor it into your number, but it is worth talking about on a podcast is like the narrative part of it, where you can look back through quotes and see where the Ravens feel like they missed out. You look at the Zay Flowers, the fumble, and then the penalty that pushed them back after a big play in that championship game. This is a narrative based thing, but like this is a game that's certainly circled for the Ravens, where they feel like they've missed out on the opportunity from last year.
Yeah, I think if you're asking me to play it today, I'm taking the Ravens +3, very juicy at the moment. So we'll see if this one does fall back to 2.5. I feel like books probably don't want it at 3. And so maybe this closes 2.5. So we're guaranteeing some profit sharing at some point, or the handle actually coming through instead of pushing. But that'd be the way I lean for now. Move to the September 6th start, the Green Bay Packers at the Philadelphia Eagles. We currently have the Packers a 2.5 point underdog on the road in Philly. All the juice right now on the Eagles looks like this is trending towards 3. And based on the movement I've been tracking so far, I've seen it at 2, now 2.5, and now a very juiced 2.5. So that does certainly point in that direction. Total here is 49. Juice is split both ways, so no real indicator there. And that total has not moved from what I've seen. What do you think about the darling that were the Green Bay Packers to finish the 2023-24 season versus where they are now as a sub 3 point underdog on the road at Philly?
Yeah, yeah. We probably should start with you because I know you're a big Packers guy. That's your
Well,
team.
so I really liked I'm my team. What do you mean my team? Tighten up, baby. I think the Packers to me are I mean, very dynamic offense because they have so many wide receivers that no one even knows who to draft in fantasy because no one has any clue.
Right.
I don't think. Christian Watson realized one hamstring or thigh, whatever, was bigger than the other, so he's reducing the size of one, growing the other. So he's going to be awesome, hopefully, but still don't know which receiver to pick. Aaron Jones moved on, which is, I think, a bigger loss than a running back will ever be spoken about because it's not cool or math friendly to say anything about that on a podcast, especially an analytical one like betting the pitch, the NFL edition. But I do think that he just had something about him that he's able to find holes. I don't know that it'll work in Minnesota. Unfortunately, different situation. But I like Matt LaFleur and how he basically protects his quarterbacks by running the ball a lot. I wonder with Jordan Love if he gets a little bit more aggressive, though he wasn't there in Rodgers. So I would expect it to be pretty conservative. The big question here for me is if you're backing the Packers here, it's mainly because I think it's more than liking the Packers, it's disliking the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm not really sure what this new offensive coordinator, new game plan is going to look like. Sounds like a lot more passing, which that to me seems to reduce the huge advantage that Noah could stop the tush push, the Philly special. No, I guess that was the Nick Foles play. But regardless, I just don't know that I trust Philadelphia, but I do feel like this price is far too short, too low, and too much respect for the Packers at this point. So I think I'm on the sidelines at least till I get three, and I don't even know if I want that.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Um, I'm all in on Philadelphia this year. Kellen Moore, I don't get the Kellen Moore the concern there. Yes, he is going to air it out more, but I also think that leaves more opportunity for Jalen Hurts to face lighter boxes, to be able to improvise with the run game, which is still the most dangerous play in the NFL to me as a mobile quarterback. When you've got elite playmakers running down the field and you've got cornerbacks with their back to this just daunting quarterback that is physical and can still run at a high rate. So yeah, I think Kellen Moore is a great fit for this as long as Sirianni stays away and just lets Kellen Moore do the offense and not get involved. And I think we're going to see that in the first portion. Maybe when there's a mishap or a bad game, that's when I start having questions. But I think this Philadelphia team, personnel wise, yeah, Jahan Dotson is just another weapon to it all. I think that was a sneaky good. He's going to be like their fourth or fifth option, and that guy is definitely he should be a number two, number three. He was just facing an abysmal Washington. He's just dealing with a Washington offense that couldn't do anything. So, um, I'm all in on the Eagles this year. The defense is fine. The secondary still to me they swapped a couple pieces out, and so it should be better. But I think we're gonna just see. I think we're gonna see some points in this one. If I'm being honest, like I think the Packers have a new defensive coordinator. Jeff Hafley comes from the college ranks, still trying to implement this system. Secondary has good pieces, really, really good pieces, but are they all just gonna be clicking on the first week? I think that's where I would lean if I were had to make a bet on this game.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I'm curious about points because 49 is a pretty big total for the NFL. It's kind of amazing that I feel like we've just seen totals in the 30s a lot of last season.
Yeah.
Um, I think we might have found our first disagreement so far on the podcast this year. I don't really see it with Kellen Moore in a combination with you keep calling Jalen Hurts a quarterback. I don't know. I mean, his number suggests it, but I feel like you can pick any number these days. And I feel like he'd normally be wearing like a 28 or something like that. I mean, if Jalen Hurts can throw all of a sudden, then that team's gonna be very good. And 2.5 seems very, very short in this one. I don't believe Jalen Hurts is a quarterback. I think he's got some skills that translate in certain ways there. There's a reason why he was forced out of Alabama, I feel, and I'm just not really a huge believer.
Hi, who is your starting fantasy quarterback?
In our league, I kind of just really enjoyed buying things in auctions. It's Jalen Hurts, so I'm really, just playing both sides. So I'm hoping he's listening to this podcast. I know he's one of our 1,500 subscribers.
He's one of our supporters for sure.
He definitely is. Okay, so we've done now the Thursday night and the Saturday night. So we're gonna do the standalone games, the Sunday night football game, which we'll get to a little bit later in the show, which is the Los Angeles Rams at the Detroit Lions, another playoff rematch. Then we'll go to the Jets 49ers Monday night. We're going to do something a little bit different, pick two games. We haven't said which ones we're going to pick yet. I'll give you at _Schnicker the first call. What game you'd like to discuss?
Oh, okay. Well, so there are lots of different ways we could have gone with this. I was trying to look, okay, what is like the most fan intriguing game, or what is the most interesting game to me in terms of a betting market. And I think I landed with what was the most intriguing game to me with a betting market, just because I've watched this number move, and everyone feels to see seems to be so black and white on each side. So I'm gonna go with the Arizona Cardinals traveling across the country to the Buffalo Bills. Um, Buffalo, it feels like everyone has already decided that there's going to be this massive step back. Maybe not massive, but a pretty big step back. And Arizona, with a healthy Kyler Murray, new Marvin Harrison Jr., Trey McBride, that these pieces are going to come together, even though their defense is still absolutely horrendous. So we've watched this number. I've watched it all summer, just keep dropping and dropping. I think we're at. You can do actually, yeah. Give us
So we'll
the
go Bills 5.5
numbers.
point favorites at home in Orchard Park, New York. Minus 115 at BetOnline currently. So a little money there. I guess a little more juice on the Bills. Total's 48. In terms of movement, I have been tracking this at 6.5, but it's very possible that you saw higher earlier in the year. So 6.5 down to
Yeah,
five and a
there,
half at least.
if you were super early, you could have gotten a touchdown. You could have gotten a seven. And so I think what I'm looking at in the market is just how massively different seven is to a 5.5.
Sure.
Um, yeah, to me, the Cardinals. I'm not a believer in Jonathan Gannon, their head coach. He the defense when he was with the Eagles was not good. Last year, that's a tough situation. I know they're not working with a lot of talent in Arizona.
Yep. Yep.
Uh, but
They
I
were
still
literally
don't.
trying to get their quarterback through the season without getting hurt, so they didn't
Yeah,
have to extend his contract. But then
that's
he's still
right.
there. So
I just have a hard time. What I struggle with is when a head coach, when the team doesn't take on the identity of a head coach, when it doesn't have any sort of mechanism there. Maybe there's an improvement. I'm just not seeing what the market's seeing on on a lot of Cardinals love against these Bills. Matt Milano, the linebacker for the Bills, it's
you love that
frustrating.
guy.
He's out again. And yes, you're going to have some different pieces in the secondary. Just color me interested. Do you have any thoughts on this one?
I would actually lean with you. We did not talk about this beforehand. I actually had no idea you'd pick this game of all the list. Sean McDermott still is the head coach, so that's gonna, of course, cause some drama on this podcast at some point during this season. I feel like Arizona's got a lot to prove. The Bills, to me, I mean, yes, they could certainly win a close game and not cover the spread, but in the NFL, you're generally picking winners based on who you think will win the game straight up, and that usually will mean they cover the spread. Also, um, I don't feel good enough about the Cardinals. I feel like if you rewind 2 minutes on this podcast, you might have heard me call Jalen Hurts a running back. Well, Kyler Murray might be a little bit better of a thrower than Jalen Hurts, but I mean, I have not really seen this incredible offensive attack, gunslinger mentality, all that sort of stuff, because you can barely see over the line. So I don't know necessarily if getting a quarterback out in space, maybe for week one, it's not as big of a deal, but that's going to be really tough. And I think that's why we see Kyler always on the injury report or missing seasons and things of that nature. I feel like there's probably points here if the Cardinals are able to stay and hang in this game. It's probably not in a defensive struggle, as you mentioned. I think the flaws are on the defensive side of the ball. I think there are flaws everywhere on this Cardinals team, but the Bills, to me, I'm not ready to give up on them. They certainly have a lot of issues at wide receiver right now, both with injuries plus with new faces, personnel coming in. I don't know that anyone has really caught a meaningful pass from Josh Allen really on the team besides like a third string or third wide receiver with Diggs
Dawson
gone,
Knox and Dalton
Gabriel Davis
Kincaid.
gone. I mean,
That's the offense.
yeah, I mean, maybe James Wood's going to lead the team in receptions this year. I don't know. James Cook, sorry. I don't know who James Wood is. Oh yeah, he plays for the Nationals. Sorry. There we go. Baseball's coming out. I've already did a college football podcast today. Check that out if you haven't already. So just good luck with where I'm moving things. So I think over 48 is my biggest interest in this one.
Yeah.
I'm not really a huge fan of laying the points, but I also don't really see a reason to back Cardinals, especially after it moved through that key number of 7.
You're going to give out a best bet. That's a favorite this year. I'm marking it now.
Well, the 3 points and below are fair game for me at this
No, that
point.
doesn't count. So you're going to give out something. I know it. I know.
Oh, I mean, if you think I'm going to lay 7.5 with somebody, then I'm very interested to see what has happened to my life to make me change my mind. Maybe it's just all the underdogs I bet that lose in excruciating ways. I might as well just pray to be bailed out all the time. So I'm going to go with my pick here. I don't know if at all if you would have expected me to pick this one, but it's two really huge fan bases in very new stadiums. One that's rented, one that is owned, and is the Las Vegas Raiders, a 3.5 point underdog at the Los Angeles Chargers. Totals 42 and a half in this one. I've seen the total drop from 43, so not a huge move there, I don't think, unless you're really just living and dying by half points on NFL totals in the summer, which if you are, please write in our comments, leave a 5-star review. I'd love to know who
Yeah.
you are and just,
Yes.
I don't know, see what else you do for fun, like eating nails or something like that. But you can start on this one since I picked it and you gave me the benefit of the doubt. I don't know if you did, but what do you think about the Raiders 3.5 point underdogs total at 42 and a half at the Los Angeles Chargers, or really on a neutral field?
Well, I think even if it's only a half point, I would expect that this total will keep dropping. You have Justin Herbert that's going to have a foot issue for probably a majority of the year. It's not really something that can be, uh, there's no surgery. There's nothing that's going to happen there. It just has to heal. Uh, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence going into a season where you're the target of 11 defenders on every play. And then we know what the Chargers are going to be, and we know I feel like we have a pretty good idea of both these teams' identities, right? Like it's a Harbaugh team. They have a really an offensive line that's littered with first round picks, and they've drafted a running back. They signed two more in Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. Um, and we don't really know much about their pass catchers other than they are names that college fans would be familiar with like Quentin Johnston or Lad McConkey. Um, so yeah, it's going to be a pretty physical game, and I think that actually plays pretty well into the Raiders' hands because their strength is on the defense, and they're happy to get into a game where you just line it up and see who's more physical. Who's more physical? You have a new head coach that is no stranger to the NFL versus a interim now current head coach that I still have a lot of questions about, Antonio Pierce. Um, golly, I'll take the the Harbaugh team in this situation, just from a
So that's
coaching
so
standpoint.
that's you coming in here and expecting that who's got it better than us? Nobody is going to
Right.
make the Chargers turn into from one of the softest teams in football for a decade, decade and a half, 2 decades, maybe the entire franchise history. And now they're going to play the smash mouth football just based on bringing in some old Ravens running backs, who
No, I
he
mean,
played
look
for
at
his
I'm,
brother
I'm pointing to like the
who saved
offensive
him from
line.
drowning one time.
I'm pointing to the offensive line changes there.
Sure.
Um, I'm pointing to a different defensive philosophy where you're going to get. I think a defense can change. Just I mean, look at the Raiders. Look to how they changed when Antonio Pierce came in and put his emphasis there. I think the defense is so often about effort and there is like some scheme to it, but I don't think it's that dramatic, especially if you keep it simple, which I know they are. Is this a game that I want to watch? No,
Hell
absolutely not.
yeah.
Like, not a
Hell
chance.
yeah.
This
Hell
is
yeah.
like this is like Burnley against Bournemouth.
I mean,
Right?
I feel like if I could get Sean Dyche coaching both of these teams, it'd be really, really
This
ideal.
is Sean Dyche. This would be the coach, or this would be the team he would coach.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be ugly. And I understand where the money's coming in on the total under. By the way, anyone that's watching, we may have just lost them with with,
Well,
with that reference there. But
well, let's just think about it. Sean Dyche is just for everyone's. I'm not going to go into it. Just kidding.
it's
Okay, so
a
that'll
yeah,
do it for our one by one picks on our surprise picks, I guess you could say, on what games to talk about. Now we'll go back to the main slates, and then we'll come back with best bets end of show. Of course, to stick around for that. Next main game, big one is the Rams at the Lions, right? I'm not skipping anything there, right?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
Rams
Yep.
Lions. So Lions a 3.5 point favorite right now. A rematch of a game in Ford Field in Detroit, which actually finished inside the number, which I want to say was even 2.5 or maybe three in the first round of the playoffs. And Lions, I think, won by two, covered all the spread bets for the Rams. Good for those players out there. I guess I don't know who's playing money line on a 2-point favorite or 3-point favorite for the Lions, but I guess those survive. Total's 51 in this matchup. It's going to be indoors. Jared Goff's going to have a million games indoors this year, but so does Matthew Stafford. So I mean, I'm pumped by this one. You said you're really into the primetime games. I get it. I mean, feels like a lot of love for the Lions has crept this lineup a little bit.
Yeah. I think we were seeing like 4.5 at some point. Is that
I
showing?
did not have that on my list. It's possible I just grabbed on a random day when I made lines, probably
Yeah.
within the last month or two. So
Well, so I feel pretty good about that. We a couple weeks ago looking through the Rams injury report, which is improving by the day. Um, you were missing Havenstein, or missing, I'm forgetting the other offensive lineman. Um, Matthew Stafford, obviously with the hamstring injury that may still be a problem as we get into it. Puka Nakua, but this week in practice, most of those guys have returned. Havenstein, I think, is going to be the one that's probably not playing. Um, and I think with that, you saw a little bit of market movement towards the Lions.
yes,
Um,
hamstring injury for Stafford, but he was in individual work and stretching as of over 8 days ago. So
right.
that should I think seems like he'll be good to go.
Should be good. Yeah, this game, the Rams had him on the ropes. I felt like in that playoff game,
Yep.
the Lions really couldn't do much in the second half. I'm buying on the Lions again. I think they have the pieces to compete in the secondary this year, unlike last year. They really poured a lot of resources into it, so I think they're hoping for improvement. And with a defensive coordinator that's focused on the secondary, they better improve. Um, yeah, Jared Goff, he's got what? How many games indoors? I think all but 4 or 5
Yeah,
games
some
were
ridiculous
indoors.
number. He's probably the fantasy quarterback you want, not Jalen Hurts. Idiot.
Who has Jared Goff on his
I
team?
Well, I think you also have Montgomery, so hopefully they're throwing the ball to a guy that they never throw it to.
They can do. Oh yeah, that's true.
So
Um,
you're very committed. I actually just drafted David Montgomery in another league last night, 16 teamer to
nice. That's
team
good.
up with my number one pick. I had third pick overall. This is definitely not related to this podcast, but who do you think I picked?
Your third pick overall,
Third pick overall in the draft. Third pick.
Bijan.
Oh man, he hurt me so bad last year I could never go back. I took Brees Hall, which I hate more than
All right,
anything.
yeah,
So
I like
um
that.
no,
Okay.
I don't hate it. But so I feel like there's a difference to me. Like you'd think playoff games matter more for home field advantage because
Yeah.
those are the biggest games out there. I feel like in the regular season, teams are almost better at home. The home field advantage is stronger in terms of just the difference in how teams play. To
Yeah.
me, there's something about that. Whereas I don't know if it's the motivation, the studying, all the sort of things that it's so honed in on during the playoffs that I feel like it's a little more flippant. Teams are still kind of learning who they are, and maybe home field matters a little bit more in week one. So it kind of feels like the Rams are not getting enough for me. But I got to say, indoors, Jared Goff, I think is a great position for him to score a lot of points. So I think
Let's.
over 51 would probably be my interest, but that's a big,
Yeah.
big total for the
Big total.
2024-25 NFL.
Let's look at like just overall. So win total wise, the Rams were they were like their win total was 7, I think, last off season.
It was
You know,
low for sure. Yeah.
they eclipsed it. I feel like they
Eight and a
had
half
some
this year.
nice
Let's
a nice
see.
run of fortune. Puka Nakua, no one could have predicted what he was able to do. I
6.5 last year.
it closed 6.5. Is this team 2 wins better? No Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford.
I mean, I know the defense isn't better with no Aaron Donald.
Not, I don't know if he's going to be truly healthy. He hasn't been healthy really, even when they won the Super Bowl. I just have, I'm kind of pressing pause on the Rams, and I think we might be able to see where people are like, oh, pointing back to the last time these two played, the one that ended the Rams season, kind of remembering that second half and saying, oh, look, the Rams, they figured this out. And yeah, I could lay some points on that.
Well, we got a minus 114 right now bet online on the Los Angeles Rams. So it's very possible you might see a three at some point, which I think would be a very, very nice number to wait for. Okay, last game on our list, and then we'll try to figure out how to fill up the last few things of the show. Just kidding. Our best bets are coming 12-6 end of the season last year in the playoffs. So you should get on that 67%. Try to make it 69. We're not there yet, unfortunately. Need at least
We're
one
getting
win,
there.
probably for you to push for us to get there. So, or one of us to win, one of us to push. Last game on the list, Monday Night Football, New York Jets plus 3.5 at San Francisco. Total is 44 here, and this one's been definitely falling. 4.5 to 3.5 might be a result of a left tackle holding out, or Christian McCaffrey being a little bit dinged up this summer, or I don't know, they're rumored to be trading all of their wide receivers. I would think that Deebo Samuel is most likely to stay, but that doesn't seem to be guaranteed. What do you think about this one? First, the drop from 4.5 to 3.5. Does that 1 point signify anything to you? And then we can get to the Jets afterwards.
But you and I, when we weren't talking about the pie, I was talking about how I actually liked the Jets in this one. Um, Now it's getting a little too uncomfy for me. We'll see. We'll see where we go. We still have we told people we're recording this on August 27th? We probably should let the lines are we're a little going to be a little bit behind here from
Well,
where
we're doing it now. We're giving people a jump on these numbers. So
it's
we're
true.
telling people we are doing the line smithing. We are ironing it out and telling people what to do and where things are going to go. And please, if we're not very good at this, please light us up in the comments, but make sure you leave 5-star review if you're doing it.
That's fine. Yeah. I'm good with I like some feedback, even if it's negative. At least that's we can talk about it. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
okay. Jets defense, I love it. Hassan Reddick, not a great situation. Not my favorite thing when you have one of the best pass rushers refusing to show up. I think they're going to give him the money at some point. Maybe go as maybe a Chris Jones situation. Maybe it's like a game or two into the deal before they give him what he wants. But the 49ers are kind of built into the Rams mode already, where they're just so top heavy. There's not a lot of depth. I think during the preseason, I do look at the preseason lines and the 49ers were a fade team every single week just because they didn't have a lot of depth and you just had injury after injury, defensive line injuries. Um, but obviously their elite is elite. I'm not worried about Christian McCaffrey. In a Kyle Shanahan offense. I don't know if I'm really worried about which wide receivers. Debo to me is the one that makes an impact because Purdy, his splits with and without Debo are pretty huge. The other ones, like I'm fine with it. Like Jacob Cowan, the guy who I've seen in the preseason, he was great in college, and I think he would be a great slot guy for the 49ers. Like I I know we're getting a little bit in the weeds, but to me,
Yeah.
like the Jets are such a popular pick. Um, that I but there are a lot of injuries for the 49ers that need to get cleared up before I would feel comfortable picking a side here.
Okay. But you're on board. You think Ayuk is getting traded before Debo would, if they
I
are to
think,
move, he would be the one.
yeah, I think they might trade Ayuk. It depends on how good they feel about the other ones, but I mean, I think Debo is sticking around.
Okay. All right, we'll get to the Jets then side of this. You think they're a little popular. Clearly, they've been taking some money in this marketplace, dropping down a point. I guess 4 is relatively key, not super key, but
Secondary.
an important number. We'll see. I mean, if it hits 3, that's saying something to me. But I'm not sure that it will, especially with a Monday night start, first weekend of the pro football season. I would expect San Francisco to bet pretty heavily. What are your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers before we wrap this up and go into best bets?
Oh, I'm still an Aaron Rodgers guy. If his offensive line can protect him,
Okay.
because he's not going to be he can't move much. I think the injury, any kind of if you look at any sort of social media sports doctor or whatever else, they don't seem to be as concerned. I was about to call it Twitter, but then I know you call it X now, and so I just went with social.
I still call it Twitter, so we're good.
So they seem confident that because of whichever the leg that was injured, it shouldn't affect his throwing. It shouldn't affect his ability to throw it downfield. Um, he's got every kind of weapon he needs. Brees Hall, Garrett Wilson, Tyler Conklin. There's the security blanket for the tight end. Um,
That doesn't sound like a lot of weapons to me.
it doesn't.
I mean, Brees Hall, like I mean, it's, I guess, a year further away from his ACL tear, but like,
Yeah, this is the, that second year is the one where you're like, oh, this is when he's fully healthy, he's fully recovered.
got it. Okay.
Uh, okay,
Okay.
well, I'll just say that to me, this line, it says more about the 49ers right now than what I think about the Jets. You and I have talked. I will be looking for opportunities to fade the 49ers, and we can clip this right now and watch when they go like on a 10-0 spread win. But I'm looking for opportunities to fade the 49ers throughout the year on the point spread. And
I wonder
so
if there's going to be
leave it at
more
that.
teams in the NFL that take the Chiefs' path like last season, not really caring so much
Maybe.
about what seed you were, trying
Yeah.
to keep your main men healthy, which I think is the way, the only way I can explain the usage of Travis Kelce during the regular season versus the playoffs is that they were saving him for that, and it worked
Yep.
out. I don't know that
Good
49ers are
point.
going to do that. I feel like McCaffrey's the number one target for that potential. And if they keep winning games, then maybe they don't need to push in that certain direction, but
Yeah.
we'll certainly see. And those are 6 games we've gone through on Tuesday, August 27th, of course. So still a little while. I think we just finished 53-man rosters today,
Mhm.
but there's still plenty of movement to be had. We've tried to give you some insights on where we think lines will move and where you should go to lock in your plays or wait on them, whichever you will. What we can do now, though, is give out our best bets on this week 1 episode. 12-6 to finish the playoffs last season, 18 games, 67%. I'm sure we'll shoot for that this season. The goal is really to keep winning. Schnick was super hot for a while, and then I think I took the reins toward the end. So I'm trying to keep that going, though we are both trying to win here. If you're not a member of my Patreon, check it out, patreon.com/real_G Warner, best spot for all my plays across all sports. And if you want to be with our podcast, you can leave a 5-star review. It's huge for the search rankings, get us in the eyesight of more people, make us do more episodes. Potentially, I try to get Schnicker on the horn a little bit longer if we can get some sort of reason to do so. 5-star reviews will certainly do that. Subscribe on YouTube at the real_G Warner. Anywhere you listen to your podcasts, it should be under the Betting the Pitch podcast network. So at A_Schnicker, are you prepared to give us your week 1 best bet? It's way in advance, so you can take advantage of potentially seeing some lines change. But we're going what we see today, what's live, and what I can click on right now.
Yep. So that's what we're going to go with. And I think I would recommend that you get this in before we get closer to kickoff. We're going to go with a small favorite to start the year. We're going to the city that rocks,
Ooh.
Cleveland. We're going to Cleveland, taking the Browns -2.5 against the Cowboys. CeeDee Lamb just got paid. That really has nothing to do with this. I always look at the offensive line. They have just been hemorrhaging offensive line starters that are out for multi-weeks. Cowboys are. I don't question the Browns defense. Deshaun Watson is a different topic. I think at home they're going to get after Dak, maybe with a new contract by that point or not. So I'm going to go with the Browns -2.5.
So you just heard it. This is the Betting the Pitch NFL edition, the 1-minute episode going on Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts at the real_G Warner on both of those platforms. If you want the full 40-minute episode, please follow us on Betting the Pitch on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on YouTube, of course, at the real_G Warner. But we were 12-6 to finish our last 18 best bets during the playoffs. We're going to try to keep that hot streak going at A_SCHNITKER. Last time I'll spell it for the season, but he gave you the Cleveland Browns -2.5 as his best bet in this week 1 edition. For my best bet, it's a game that I really wanted to talk about in this podcast. We went through 6 games, and it's one that I picked. I'm most interested in seeing the Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers try to race to the first field goal to win this game. I'll go under 42.5 points in that eyes bleeding, paint drying opener. So grab the Browns -2.5, the Raiders and Chargers under 42.5 for this first week 1 episode. Now do it. That'll kick us out very soon. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you all in a couple weeks talking about week 2 of the NFL.